Tonight, fire sale.
And we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
Donald Trump needs to come up with $454 million. Why he might be better off letting Leland James take Trump Tower.
This could be a very juicy conversation because the fact of the matter is the deadline is around the corner.
Ceasefire. Biden and the UN demand Israel immediately stop defending itself from Hamas. Why aren't they demanding a ceasefire in Ukraine? Strike three. Baseball's richest player is caught up in a massive gambling scandal. With betting made so easy in America, how can we be sure sports are on the up and up? And mind control.
It's all being done with my brain.
Elon Musk's Neuralink implant allows a quadriplegic to play chess with just his mind. Is Elon Musk's latest breakthrough too good to be true?
It was like using the force on a cursor.
Welcome to the fairest show on television. First tonight, the left's newest move to stop Donald Trump. New York Attorney General Leland James appears to have her sights set on Trump's golf course outside of New York City. In the past couple of hours, she filed judgments in Westchester, New York. This would be the first step in seizing some of Trump's real estate. That is to put a bond down on the verdict that she received last month. A betting man would say Trump Tower could be next. And the idea of a black female attorney general seizing the assets of the man that the left hates so much is really exciting to some.
Right now, he is looking down the barrel of a gun. I mean, you can hear the clock. He has got 1 week.
This could be a very juicy conversation because the fact of the matter is the deadline is around the corner.
It's hard to have sympathy because after his braggadocious behavior for all of these years,
right.
You know, yes, Trump Tower is at stake.
That building is going to be torn down someday, like most of the buildings around it, and replaced by a better building. The coming weekend will be the most financially desperate days of Donald Trump's life so far.
And they are so excited to report on it. To the left, and this is understandable, Donald Trump is contemptible, which is fine, but somehow their hatred is blinding even political common sense. Just for a moment, let's reflect on everything else that the left has counted on to take down Donald Trump, pushing the Russian collusion story, the grabber by the P-tape, endless fact-checking during his time as president, impeachment twice, keeping January 6th in the news, criminal indictments 4 times, censoring the Hunter Biden laptop story, constant warnings by important people that he's a threat to democracy, the New York civil case, and, of course, his mugshot. Almost any one of the above situations, and certainly 2 of them, would have ended the political career of anybody other than Donald Trump. Despite all that, Trump is up 2 points nationally in the Real Clear Politics average as of today. On this day in 2016, Clinton led by 9 points. In 2020, Biden led by 7. So Trump is doing net 12 points better than he was against Clinton at this time, whom he beat. As the saying goes in grade school, whatever you say bounces off me and sticks to you. The attacks on Trump allow him to play the victim. It's his favorite role. It's where he does the best. And nothing would be better for Trump politically than New York Attorney General Leland James padlocking Trump Tower. Trump would hold a press conference right outside and sell Trump-branded bolt cutters. And his poll numbers will go up, just like they did after his mugshot, and he still sells mugshot T-shirts. CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, and others will run story after story that Trump isn't that rich, which, by the way, happens to be true. His base doesn't care. Trump agnostic swing voters see this as another weaponized justice system attacking Donald Trump because he's running for president. America's elite hate Donald Trump, and it blinds them. That includes many members of the media. Since 2015, they still have not figured out Donald Trump's superpower. The usual political rules simply do not apply to him. We start tonight with Philippe Reines, former senior advisor, press secretary to then Hillary Clinton. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
How's it been? Good.
It's been good.
All right. Is there any fear in Democrat circles that the same logic about going after Trump in 2016 is being repeated?
No, because, when I look at that grid of the 8 different things or whatever it is, there are 8 different, places. There are, New York State, there's Georgia, there's the federal government. Maybe if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. And let's just say, for sake of argument, that I concede that 4 of the 8 are not significant. I don't believe that, but for the sake of argument. That means that 4 of them are. Whether or not Donald Trump benefits from it or whether he can shirk it off, as he typically does, that doesn't mean they're not significant. And while, yes, his base seems to respond to exactly that, the rest of the electorate, particularly independents, they do not like the noise. They left him in 2020 because they didn't like the cacophony of Donald Trump. They didn't mind what he said about immigration or about anything else. They just wanted their life.
No mean tweets, right?
That is not quiet.
No, I hear you on that, but it's not Trump quiet. It's the left not being quiet. Hold on, but so I'll play your theory out. If this is true, right, and you've got the Georgia case, the Florida documents case, the New York cases, on and on and on, why then, with those swing voters, is Trump up 5% in Arizona, 5% in Georgia, 3% in Michigan, 7% in North Carolina, 5% in Nevada, 4+ in Pennsylvania, and 2.4 in Wisconsin?
We got a hell of a divided country. And, if the election were tomorrow, I don't know if those numbers would hold. I hope not. Thankfully, we have 200 and something days. Look, people are not happy what's going on. They weren't happy 4 years ago. They're not happy now. They weren't happy 8 years ago. Something's got to give. In a very rare opportunity here, you're going to have 2 people to choose from who've both been president. We haven't seen that over 130 years, and it's only happened once. So he's not coming out of nowhere. And when people hopefully look at the 4 years that under his stewardship and the 4 years that we're in the midst of now, they will make that decision. I also think what's coming into play are economic conditions. So things are getting better. And there's a lag on feeling that.
We said that at the end of last year, that this year could very well be a very good year for Joe Biden as the economy, your point, seems to turn around. I want to get back to this issue, though, of how Democrats deal with Donald Trump. And every time he has defied political gravity, political rules. Has there been any discussion of, hey, maybe we should halas, that's Arabic for stopping, maybe we should halas, my old foreign correspondent days come back, maybe we should halas on sort of the traditional attacks against him, the prosecutions, and allowing him to play the victim, and start prosecuting the race on the issues?
Well, look, it's maddening. It's absolutely maddening. But what
do you guys do when you sit around talking about
We're not a monolith. I didn't come from the clubhouse where we were all given the secret Democratic handshake. If we could do what we wanted, many people think we control all these things. And I understand why people may think that about New York because it's a solid blue state. But we're talking about the Georgia, state of Georgia. And I know you're going to say Brian Kemp's no friend of Donald Trump, but still. If we could push all these buttons, why wouldn't the trials have started? Why are the trials in danger of going past 2024? We aren't we're not playing this with the federal prosecutors. If we could, then maybe the Hunter Biden stuff would go away. Maybe there wouldn't be a devastating testimony by a special prosecutor about his looking into Joe Biden's handling of documents.
Let me ask you this, and maybe we can agree on this. I've always enjoyed our conversations because you do call balls and strikes. If either party were to give up their octogenarian sacred cow, the first one to do it would win in a landslide. Nikki Haley would beat Joe Biden, and the governor of Kentucky would trounce Donald Trump. Fair?
I think that is possible.
So,
it doesn't matter. I mean, it is what it is. We have a choice between 2 guys.
Play the game.
I mean, it's not RFK Jr. It's not Jill Stein. It's not Nikki Haley.
Okay, so how do Democrats?
We're responsible for this.
How do we?
On behalf of America. I mean, we elected the oldest president of all time in 2016. And we elected the oldest president in 2020. We renominated these 2. I mean, it's not like they were imposed upon us. These are who we picked. And there's something to say about experience. Now, I'm glad that finally someone puts Donald Trump and Joe Biden in the same age bracket, which they're supposed to be. They're 2 years apart. I mean,
no kidding.
If your father is 80 and your mother is 77, you don't say dad married a younger woman. They are the same age.
You especially don't say that at 77 and 80. I mean, you might say it at 20 and 23. All right.
It's good seeing you.
Good to see you, my friend. Thanks. Welcome back anytime. Overnight, Elon Musk's Neuralink released a video of its very first patient playing chess on his laptop, using only his mind to control the computer.
I love playing chess, and so this is one of the things that y'all have enabled me to do, something that I wasn't able to really do much the last few years, especially not like this. I had to use like a mouse stick and stuff, but now it's all being done with my brain. If y'all can see the cursor moving around the screen, that's all me, y'all.
Meet Noland Arbaro. This 29-year-old man paralyzed from the shoulders down because of a diving accident. A month or so ago, doctors implanted the Neuralink in his brain. And as you saw, using his thoughts, he controls the mouse on the computer screen. It is literally out of this world. So forget all the Star Wars stuff. If true, if real, Neuralink will offer freedom to hundreds of thousands of people with injuries and disabilities. Just breathtakingly cool. So we'll think about Noland. He can now easily type emails, play chess, communicate, work. Who knows? Maybe in a few years he'll be able to drive. The possibilities are endless. But herein lies the problems with Elon Musk. He's known to make some pretty outlandish claims, right? His tweet one time that he'd secured funding to take Tesla private turned out to be untrue, sparked an SEC investigation. In 2016, he claimed Tesla's self-driving would be able to drive from New York to Los Angeles the next year. It still can't do that, and full self-driving mode is wildly unpredictable in Teslas. Let's hope for everyone's sake, really. The Neuralink video is the real deal. Musk will have made a lot of people's lives incalculably better. One of the few things in life that works exactly as promised is your iPhone. In fact, it's better than Steve Jobs ever told us it would be. So why is the government suing Apple to make it worse? And Americans spend more on sports betting every year than they do collectively at Target. But a new arrest rocking the baseball world shows we have no idea if we are betting on honest games.
Nine most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help."
Ronald Reagan said that 4 decades ago, and today it proved true again. The government wants to make nothing else but your iPhone, and we all have one, right? They want to make your iPhone better. Never mind that 90% of iPhone users buy another iPhone. It's a pretty good endorsement by consumers, but Attorney General Merrick Garland thinks, well, he can change things in some way by suing Apple. He can help.
Apple has maintained monopoly power in the smartphone market not simply by staying ahead of the competition on the merits, but by violating federal antitrust law. Consumers should not have to pay higher prices because companies break the law.
All right. Business litigation trial attorney Seth Baronsweg joins us now. Seth, appreciate you being with us. How in the world are consumers going to benefit by somehow the government taking over what's on my iPhone, or how Apple does business?
Well, I don't think that consumers are going to benefit at all from this lawsuit. This is a huge piece of litigation that now will probably go on for years, where the government filed an 80-page screed laying out all of these parades of horribles as to why Apple supposedly is engaging in an antitrust violation under federal law. Here's the problem. The problem is that Apple has created its own unique high-tech infrastructure, which is basically a walled garden of technology centered upon the iPhone. And the Attorney General has a problem with the fact that Apple has done an amazing job creating interactive technology within that space, and now they're being attacked by saying that this is being too effective. Apple is operating in a fiercely competitive market. It's doing a great job, and there's more help than harm that's benefiting the American consumer. So as you point out, bureaucrats should not be managing your iPhone. The free market should be doing that. This is a weak case that should not have been filed.
Any idea why they're doing it then? These are smart lawyers.
Well, I think that, quite frankly, there's a little bit of a political nuance to this. that we're in the heat of a political season, and the Justice Department, together with joining forces with 16 states, is going in and saying that they're going to be carrying the consumer protection flag. You also have to realize that this is a Justice Department that has taken a very distinct view of antitrust. See, for example, their fierce opposition to the JetBlue Spirit transaction. But really what they're doing is they're attacking a company, Apple, which has essentially become the victim of its own success. The reason why they have these interactive elements on a technology platform is because they are purposefully trying to create a safer, more secure experience. A lot of these other technology companies have hacks that the Apple environment simply doesn't have. That is a safety feature that really the government gives short shrift to. So ultimately, the company needs to be able to allow market forces to prevail. And I think that as far as the litigation is concerned, it will be a long battle, but I think Apple will come out on top.
And we all know Apple has a lot of attorneys that bill by the hour, which means that all of the attorneys' fees are going to get passed on to us, the consumer, or to the stockholders, right? The stock of Apple's down 4% in everybody's 401k. Every pension fund, union pension fund, holds Apple stock, so that's where everybody gets caught. It was funny you said about the DOJ. I have been told over and over again that there's absolutely nothing political about the Department of Justice ever. So I think I just want to be fair to the DOJ that that's what they would say. Their lawsuit against Apple, illegal behavior, new subscription to automotive services, third-party apps, like if you buy something on Kindle, then Apple gets a cut of it. I think that's what they're trying to talk about. The creation of third-party digital wallets are forbidden. Degrading the marketing of cross-platform messaging and blocking the growth of apps. I don't know. I have WhatsApp and Signal and everything else. Suppressed mobile cloud streaming services. On and on and on. You think about sort of the issues presented to America right now. Your iPhone, that 80 or 90% of Americans who have an iPhone buy another iPhone, versus doors falling off airplanes, the Adderall shortage, crumbling bridges and infrastructure, the fentanyl epidemic, potholes. There's all these very basic things. And I'm wondering, yes, the government can do two things at once, but the fentanyl crisis, for example, is a DOJ issue. How much of this is the DOJ having to appear to be doing something because they can't or they won't solve the much harder problems?
Well, not only do I agree with your analysis, but quite frankly, this is a case that indicates a solution looking for a problem. Are we really suffering as consumers over the fact that at most we might have to pay $9 a month for groundbreaking technology in the App Store? Are we really suffering when, in fact, we have multiple phones that we can buy, we have multiple platforms that we can reference? The level of technology for today has made the life of the consumer stronger than ever. We have multiple options to be able to pay, not just the Apple Wallet. So really, I think the Justice Department has a lot of ills that are going on right now. Even in the business space, there are issues that are happening. But the free market should be in charge of regulating Apple. And the graveyard of American corporations is littered with companies that were up one day and down the next. Free market forces
BlackBerry.
should be.
Yeah, you just look at BlackBerry, look at Nokia, even in the mobile phone world. BlackBerry owned corporate email, and then the iPhone came in and said, "Hey, we can do a better stuff." You are a scholar, a counselor, an advisor, and a lawyer who agrees with me and doesn't send me a bill. You will certainly be invited back, sir. Thank you.
You bet. My pleasure.
All right. President Biden's team wants an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. They're going to the UN to demand a ceasefire in Gaza. But the same administration attacks anybody who wants or even talks about a ceasefire in Ukraine. They're called pro-Putin. Ambassador John Bolton supports American intervention in both wars. Why won't the administration give up the ghost in Ukraine? When we come back.
Of the population of Gaza is experiencing severe levels of acute food insecurity. We must not allow that to continue.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken speaking in Cairo, as you can see. There's something pretty rich about him speaking about that and lecturing Israel from Egypt, no less, describing the dire situation in Gaza. In a major shift, 5 months into the war in Israel, and the Biden administration has fully abandoned the Jewish state. Here's just part of their resolution at the United Nations. The Security Council determines the imperative of an immediate and sustained ceasefire to protect civilians on all sides in connection with the release of all remaining hostages. No demands for Hamas to lay down its weapons. No demands for Hamas to give up control of Gaza. No demands for Hamas to surrender the people who raped and pillaged their way through Israel on October 7th and created true terror in a way that Jews had not experienced since the Holocaust. The White House position is clear. If you support a ceasefire in Gaza, then you are a humanitarian. But the U.S. seems to have a very different opinion of a ceasefire in Ukraine. Reports from Reuters and the New York Times show the U.S. rejected Putin's request for a ceasefire. Here now, former United Nations Ambassador John Bolton also serves as National Security Advisor under President Trump. Mr. Ambassador, good to see you as always. Thank you. Do you think this different treatment of Ukraine and Israel by the administration is justified, and how would you square the circle?
No, I don't think so. Look, in Ukraine first, the Russians were the ones who committed aggression at a high cost in human life. They've succeeded in doubling the territory of Ukraine they now control. This is not the time to have a ceasefire, which would simply give Russia a de facto new border. That's, I think, what Putin's interested in. So I think it's perfectly legitimate there to say no ceasefire. And I would say the same in Gaza. If there's a humanitarian tragedy going on, the party responsible is Hamas, that is barbaric enough, cruel enough to endanger its own civilian population to protect itself from being eliminated by the Israelis. This amounts really to a terrorist veto over Israel's right to self-defense. So I think the way to get a ceasefire, I think the way to get the remaining hostages released and get humanitarian aid in is for Israel to defeat Hamas.
Help us understand, why do you think, I should say, that the administration has such a different view, and that, at least among a certain part of America's elite, it is so popular to demand a ceasefire in Gaza? You are a humanitarian, but demanding a ceasefire, even talking about a ceasefire or a negotiated settlement in Ukraine, makes you a Putin apologist.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I think the administration's position on the ceasefire in Gaza makes them objectively pro-Hamas. Israel's right to self-defense includes eliminating the threat. It doesn't mean eliminating part of the threat and then kind of stopping for a while to allow them to regroup. That's not something we did in World War II at any point that I'm aware of. Our determination was to eliminate the Nazi state and to eliminate Imperial Japan, which, by the way, we did. I think the administration really is under enormous pressure from the left wing, the anti-Israel wing of the Democratic Party. They're obviously worried about a potentially very close election in November. And I think they've gone completely schizophrenic. And that's what this UN ceasefire resolution is about. It's a betrayal, really, of our closest ally without evidence of Israeli commission of war crimes. There's a lot of hot air out there, but the administration even now is engaged in a study. I have been told, for what it's worth, that our embassy in Jerusalem cabled back to Washington that their review, at least, of what Israel's doing has not amounted to any illegal acts by Israel. Now, we'll see if others disagree, but I think this is a panic move by the Biden White House.
Fair enough. And look, in any time you have a lack of moral clarity, right, you don't get either side, because you can't make people in this kind of situation on either side happy. Chuck Schumer gave a speech saying that it's time for Benjamin Netanyahu to go. And then Joe Biden, the president, responded to that. Take a listen.
I'm not going to elaborate on the speech. He made a good speech, and I think he expressed a serious concern shared not only by him, but by many Americans.
You know Benjamin Netanyahu very well. I know him less well, but do know him. That said, he has caused problems for almost every American president that he's dealt with, regardless of party. Does the administration, specifically President Biden, have a legitimate gripe with him?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's certainly the case Netanyahu's not doing what the administration wants, but I've got news for them. Based on my assessment of the situation in Israel, for Schumer and Biden, to attack Netanyahu strengthens his position inside Israel, because imagine, it's hard to imagine, but, you know, the Israelis actually don't like people telling them from the outside it's time to hold elections. Benny Gantz, who's a coalition partner but certainly wants to be prime minister to succeed Netanyahu, made a statement that was pretty clear. He didn't think Schumer was being helpful by interfering in Israeli politics. This is a very stressful time in Israel, and to have us or any outsider, frankly, explain to them how to run their democracy, almost invariably, it was predictable this would cause a backlash precisely against the position Schumer was advocating.
Yeah, fair enough. Great piece in The Economist, by the way, I thought, detailing the foreign policy issues with both President Trump and President Biden. Though your analysis was not our favorite part of the piece, I believe we have our favorite part of the piece to put up on the screen. Do we? Here it is. It's coming. We thought it captured the smile well.
Thank you so much, Leland.
Good to see you, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you. Great piece as well. I encourage everybody to read it on The Economist. Good to see you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. From the borders of the Middle East and Ukraine to our own border, our southern border. Crazy scene there. 100+ illegal immigrants rushed across today at Eagle Pass, Texas. They pushed past the razor wire and then got to the Texas National Guard. The video from the New York Post, you can see there, a group of men began pulling at the fencing. 5 guards, you can see there, tried to form some kind of defensive barrier. They were unsuccessful for some time. At one point, and you can see right there, they got rushed and then pushed over. Eventually, we're told, the large group was pushed back to Mexico, but expect to see more of this as illegal immigrants realize that Texas now may have the authority to deport people. There is certainly a sense of entitlement that people can come to the United States, and many of these people have spent their life savings for this opportunity. You can see the anger and desperation. And boy, some incredible restraint by the National Guard troops in this moment. Coming up next, gambling in America. Well, it is under a new spotlight. Perhaps it should be, after news that baseball's biggest star got caught up in a betting scandal. How do we go from Washington calling it very possible evil, well, to gambling becoming so mainstream? It's double of what was bet last year. And this is just the tip of the iceberg of what Americans wager across sports betting. Americans spent almost $120 billion on sports betting last year. That is 7 times more money than what they spent on toilet paper and 18 times more than what we collectively spent on laundry detergent. And that's a lot of money. But when you bet, you assume that the games are going to be fair. There's no shenanigans going on. With $120 billion at stake, there's a lot of reasons for shenanigans. But there's breaking news out of Los Angeles that calls that very fairness into question. The Dodgers' new star, Shohei Ohtani, is wrapped up in a sports betting scandal. At the center of it is his interpreter, who was fired for stealing over $4 million from him to cover debts he incurred betting on sports illegally. It's not the first time sports betting has gotten in the way of sports. The Cleveland Cavaliers coach came out saying he was threatened by gamblers this past season. Just a couple of years ago, a professional basketball referee was fired for rigging games to make money. Garrett Bush, sports radio host on 92.3 The Fan. The show is called Barbershop. Good to see you. I love the background.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I always go back to that line, things you don't get caught on your first time, right? Cheating on your wife, DUI. You really think we've caught everybody who's taken money under the table to rig games?
Oh, no. I think when his name was Donahue was, he talked about it extensively. When there's money involved and you got people who are putting large amounts of money on the table. Before it used to be off the books. Now it's on the books. Got a nice little thing called a cell phone that you can just make a bet on FanDuel or whatever your favorite sports betting place is, there's much more people out there that have been in trouble in terms of, gambling, and people who never really gambled before. It's so accessible now to college kids, to whether you're in the NFL, you guys like Jameson Williams who've been caught gambling or wagering inside NFL buildings have been suspended. This thing is going to be really, really, really big when you start digging into it in about 5 years.
You always heard from the leagues, if you will, from the NFL, from Major League Baseball, from the NBA, that they didn't want betting because of what it brought, because of the potential stain on the game. But now they get a cut of it, and they love every minute of it. You spent a lot of time talking to players in Cleveland, right? And there was a Cleveland coach that brought this up. Is there enough? Are they talking about regulation? Are they talking about how the teams are protecting them from people who are willing to slip them $100,000 or $1 million to throw a game or throw a season?
Well, I think, I don't know if they're going through it as much as they should be. A guy like Tyrese Halliburton, who's a all-star point guard for the Indiana Pacers, he talked about in a Sports Illustrated article saying that he felt like a prop. He felt there's so many people on his timeline just talking to him about, hey, I need you to get another 2 points, or, hey, I need you to score over 15 points so I can go ahead and get this big payday. And he had to go see a sports psychologist because he said he felt like he was just a prop, and how to deal with that level of pressure when fans and even family members or people that you may know can win a boatload of money based on your job.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point out, right, because it's not just, hey, does the team win or the team lose? And for people who don't bet, I among them, I didn't realize this, but you think about all the states where sports betting is legal, you can do it on your phone, as you rightly point out, is that you can bet on all these little individual things. Does this player go over this number of points or under this number of points? Does he score a touchdown or not? Does he catch for this number of yards or not? And yeah, you're right. I can only imagine the pressure on these players if you've got friends who are going, hey man, I'm pulling for you to just get X number of yards, or boy, I don't know if you're going to have a good game, so I took the under. How doesn't that weigh on people?
It has to. I've always wondered myself aloud, if you're an NFL player and you're playing fantasy, football, right? Hey, is it illegal to bet on myself that I am going to get 100 yards, or can I play in a small circle of friends at home? It just goes to show you that not only are you thinking about it, but it's your friends that are playing. It's your coworkers.
Gary, I got to give you the last word on 30 seconds. And obviously, we've been showing this Dodgers player, a star player who was paid a boatload of money on and on and on. There's no evidence or thoughts that he did anything wrong. But I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, what do you make of the fact that the Dodgers are so silent about this and what went on in this whole thing?
Well, listen, I'll give you this. Pete Rose is the name that we don't want to hear about, one of the greatest baseball players of all time, and he is barred from making the Hall of Fame because of his betting on the sport. Shohei Ohtani is the biggest baseball player in the world, pitcher, great hitter, and they don't want any parts of impropriety, and even a whiff of impropriety when it comes to betting, gambling, and they made a swift move when they got rid of his interpreter. And I think, they want to close down all inquiries because he is the face of baseball.
All right. And baseball needs some help. Garrett Bush, it's always fun to talk. Thank you very much. We'll talk soon, my friend. Good to see you. Coming up next, new data explains why Joe Biden is so afraid of Bobby Kennedy Jr. And here's the important question. What can Joe Biden do about the most famous name in Democratic politics?
Along with That's okay, JoJo. You only have 57 here. Along with dozens of family members, I got to say. And from one big Irish Catholic family to another, it's great to have the Kennedys here.
President Biden made a point of publicly acknowledging the dozens of Kennedy family members who showed up at his St. Paddy's Day brunch. Later, they made sure to pose for a private photo op with the president. All the Kennedy clan. They tweeted it out, too. But if you look at that picture closely, arguably the most famous living Kennedy isn't in the picture. Brother, uncle, cousin Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is, of course, running against Biden for president. In all 7 of the swing states that will decide the election, a third-party candidate only hurts Biden. Add RFK to the mix. In Arizona, Trump's lead would go up by 8 points, 7 in Georgia, 5 in Nevada, 4 in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin 3, Michigan 2. Game, set, match. NewsNation contributor, Democratic strategist, LA Times contributor, former House GOP Oversight Committee advisor Kurt Bardella is here. Every time we talk, Kurt, your title gets longer in the teleprompter here. I'm not sure that gives you any extra IQ points or credibility, but here we go. How worried internally are Democrats about RFK?
I think they're very worried. I think that's part of the reason why you're seeing over the last week the Democratic National Committee announced that they are putting together basically this kind of task force within the DNC led by a very well-known political comms operative, Liz Smith, to specifically look at these third-party candidates, to do mass communications, to do rapid response, to start really pushing media stories, focusing on what they perceive to be their negatives. They're taking it very seriously because, as you pointed out, this can be a really narrow election. Having someone like Bobby in the race could very well tilt this thing towards Trump in those key 7, 8 swing states.
Liz Smith has quite a history and an important one. The fact that they tapped her says an awful lot. She doesn't come cheap either. I think about the billboard, RFK Jr., powered by MAGA Trump, same biggest donor, Timothy Mellon, paid for by the Democratic National Committee, who's one of the billboards up. Is Joe Biden's problem an RFK problem, or is it a Joe Biden problem?
I think it's a little bit of both, honestly. I think that there's certainly those, as we have seen now for the entire, quote, primary season, disaffected Democrats on the base side who want an alternative to what they currently have. And someone with the most famous last name in all of politics, and certainly Democratic politics, might appeal to those who just don't know much about him and haven't done a deep dive in him. But also, Bobby's a unique character here. And the fact that he is being well-funded, that he does have a lot of resources, even though they are coming from Donald Trump's side of things, from some of his donors, anyone that has high name ID and millions of dollars, that's a problem.
Yeah, and look, he's a disruptor. He says things that make sense to a lot of people. He's not a politician. Cuomo asked him about just this issue, about his family, a couple of nights ago. Take a listen.
As you know from your family, we don't always agree on things. And I'm very, very, there are many people in my family who work for the Biden administration. President Biden is an old friend of my family. I understand that many of them disagree with me on the war in Ukraine. They disagree with me on COVID, on some of the public health issues. They disagree with me on the free speech issue. So, and we can disagree with each other in a friendly way and still love each other.
Diplomatic, is that going to be enough once Liz Smith's attacks really zero in?
No, I mean, to this point, Bobby's kind of had a free ride so far on the Democrat side of things. Again, Liz is one of the most talented operatives.
Except he got kicked out of the DNC primary.
I mean, come on, man. I mean, this is as we have seen in every primary when there's an incumbent president, they pave the way for them. That's just how it works. But Liz Smith is a killer. And she is a seasoned pro who loves the knife fight of political comms. And I don't know if Bobby's ready for what Liz is going to dish out, because I'm telling you, man, he has not yet had to deal with something like that with an organized political pro like that coming for him. Like, it's going to get ratcheted up a whole different notch now.
He's skated in terms of having any oppo dumped on him and the rest. And there's a lot out there. All right. Kurt, thank you very much as always. We'll see you back here in D.C. Now it's time for your take. Lament to Leland. We heard from a lot of you about our coverage Monday of Trump's bloodbath comments, specifically that he was talking about an economic bloodbath of Chinese-made electric cars coming into America. JGP Watt on Instagram, well, you didn't obviously listen to the entire speech. You are taking his words and saying what you want him to say. Watt, I don't want Donald Trump to say or not to say anything. But I report on what he does say fairly. That's what makes us different from all the other networks. At YCP Distance wrote in response to the same post, is this station directly funded by the RNC? No, as a matter of fact, we are not. And the RNC wouldn't much like our recurring theme on the program, never underestimate Republicans' ability to screw things up. I think we led with that last night. At Yoga Mat wrote in response, I actually really appreciate this. I don't like the guy, but you shouldn't penalize someone for what they didn't do. Namaste, Matt. As a yogi myself, I love the screen name. After our story on measles among migrants in Chicago, Patterson Madison wrote on Twitter regarding measles, are you going to address the declining rate of MNR vaccinations that is directly related to the fact that these diseases are recurring again? How's that being fair and on balance? It's an interesting point, Patterson. The declining rate of vaccinations has nothing to do with people from the third world bringing those diseases to America. That said, we've extensively covered why people aren't vaccinating their kids here in America. And the why there is almost more important than lower vaccination rates. Whiskey Stout wrote to War Notes this weekend, I'm so mad about the ridiculousness of both parties and how dare the DNC decide for us who they get to run. This is in response to discussions about Bobby Kennedy that we just talked about. They learned nothing from the last 4 election cycles, in my humble opinion. Keep up the good work, Liberty, and I love Liberty's commentaries the most. Whiskey, it really does not take much to realize that Liberty is the smarter of the 2 Vittert children. We are proud of her and grateful to have her on the show. She'll be back next week. We invite you to respond and follow along with us at warnotes.com. That is our daily newsletter. It comes out every day at 4 p.m. It's our thoughts about the most important stories of the day. You can respond. Obviously, we read them all. We read some of them on air. At Leland Vittert on Instagram and Twitter. The former commandant of the Marine just passed away today. We didn't really know much about him, but we went back and did some reading and did some listening to the man who turned the Marines around, who created what the Marines are today. Interestingly enough, a number of his lessons, the things that he did in the 1980s and 1990s, they hold true today. We could learn a lot by looking back. We'll do that tomorrow. Man who's always looking forward, Chris Cuomo. Here he is.